Hello friends, how are you? Welcome to your own channel Medu Study. I am your friend Ashutosh from IIM Indore, and friends, as you all know, Medu Study is your own channel initiative in which we discuss various topics and subjects in a very simple manner. Friends, we have different modules on marketing strategy, OB, operations and HRM, and basis the feedback we keep on developing content. From last some time we have been getting feedback to develop more content on operations, so we are beginning the new module in it. In operations, we started with the introduction to operations, discuss about layout decisions, how to take, how to select, and then plant layout. We had 4 videos on plant layout. If you have not seen, you can go on the playlist of operations management and check. Today we are going to start the next video, which is on next chapter. So you have selected the plant layout. Now you need to begin the production and productivity. So we will begin with production and productivity today. Let us start, my dear friends. What is production? Production is the organized activity of transforming resources into finished products in form of goods and services. Some words are important in it. Organized activity transforming what? Resources, finished product. So you just see organized activity, resources, finished product. So for example, you are making it into shirts. So there will be some fiber, there will be buttons, there will be threads, all that will be stitched together and shirt will be made. So that is basically known as production. This is what production is all about. After production, the next term is productivity. Productivity is common measure on how well the resources are being used. So the various resources you are using, how well you are utilizing them, that basically is known as productivity. Simple formula to calculate productivity, my dear friends, is output upon input. How much input you are giving, what output you are getting. That is known as productivity. So I hope you have understood the difference between production and productivity. Now what are the planning hierarchies? We will discuss this and I will explain giving a common example. So first is long-term planning. So anything for 3 to 5 plus years. In case of companies, decisions like facility size, how if you want to take a new building, any equipment procurement, so never purchase machines for short term, they are always for long term. In case of your home example, it can be, for example, if you want to buy a mobile, that is a long term decision. You want to buy air conditioner, you want to buy refrigerator, so all that kind of decisions fall in this category of long term. Second category is intermediate term. Intermediate is basically 6 to 18 months, so half to 1.5 year. Decisions related to aggregate planning, which are your facility utilization, personal needs, subcontracting. Now take example, you want to buy a new shirt or some new clothes for yourself or your kids. That is an intermediate term. You will never think that I am buying this shirt for 5 years. You will buy, okay, if for 1 or 2 years it is okay, then it is sufficient. That kind of planning is known as intermediate term. Third is short term planning. So master production scheduling, disaggregation of master plan and MRP. In case of examples, it is for something for few weeks. For example, if you have to buy a ration for your home, so your parents will tell that this much is required for this particular month. Normally families plan their ration and things like that for a month. That is known as short term planning. Or for example, you have to plan the budget of your month. This much salary I am getting, what will be my expenses, what will be my savings, all that are short term. Fourth is very short term. So short term scheduling in terms of work center loading, job sequencing for few hours or maybe days. For example, for your home, you have to buy utilities like your milks, vegetables. They are never bought for a month or they are for a day or maybe 3 days or max to max 1 week, for example. So I hope you understood. Very short term, for example, groceries. Short term, for example, ration of your home. Intermediate, for example, clothing. And long term, for example, any personal use or other equipments, electronics for the home. Now what are the various planning hierarchies in operation? So my dear friends, we start with the process planning and strategic capacity planning, and all these are long range decisions. Company does process planning or capacity planning always for long term. Whenever you will see your business heads or your MDs talking about capacity planning, they will always say, for what do you want to achieve for 5 years. See, a plant or a new setup is never done for 1 or 2 years. It is always done keeping in mind a long term period. Forecast and manage the demand. Sales and operations planning is there. Now there can be sales planning, there can be operations planning. Related to manufacturing, what will be your master scheduling, how much material you required, what will be order scheduling, what will be different priorities basis the sales. If there is one article or one product which is bestseller, maybe you will produce that first, and any other article can be left at second. Another criteria can be if you have confirmed order for one particular product, you will maybe sequences first, and for anything else you can sequences later. In case of services, workforce scheduling, manpower scheduling, daily scheduling, that is basically short range. So if you are in a company in which shifts are there, in which shift which people will be working, how all that will be operating, all that comes in daily workforce scheduling. Now comes a very important term, my dear friends, which is known as AOP, or aggregate operations planning, and this is one of the core KPIs or key KPIs what a person in operations field carry. What is AOP? AOP deals with the amount of resources. Now those resources can be your productive capacity as well as labor hours to be committed, rate at which goods and services need to be produced during a period, and inventory which is to be carried forward from one period to next. That, my dear friends, is known as AOP. It is the process of determining the ideal levels of production. What will be the ideal levels of production, capacity, inventory, subcontracting, stock out, specific period pricing. This word ideal level is very important. See, we can never predict the exact thing, but what should be the ideal level? That, my dear friends, is what AOP is all about. Now AOP helps at some things. It aims at matching the demand and supply of product services by calculating correct quantity of input output and right time. Now this demand and supply, in economics we have discussed about demand and supply. Demand is how much ask is there in the market, and supply how much you can produce. Now in ideal scenario, demand should be equal to supply. If demand is more, supply is less, you are losing out on sales. If supply is more, demand is less, you are producing, which then will lead to inventory, which then will lead to additional cost. So ideal scenario, demand equal to supply. So AOP aims to match it. It will calculate the correct input output and also what is the right time for conversion. Correct? This is what is the aim of AOP. What is the need of AOP? So first of all, it is demand fluctuations. Demand keep on fluctuating. There can be extreme reasons for it. For example, extreme reasons like, for example, COVID occurred, or there are some fluctuations. There can be some other reasons. For example, if you are into products which have some seasonal things into consideration, then also demand can fluctuate. Capacity fluctuations can be there. Maybe some stock out happened, some strike happened, some load shedding happens. Capacity machine is not there, so you planned some capacity but delivered something else. Difficulty level in altering operation rates. So easier said that the management will say you alter the operation rate, but it is not very easy. Benefits of multi-period planning. So you need to plan for different periods, different things. All these are basically why AOP is needed. What are the various steps? So first step and of any operations thing or AOP will always start with determine the product demand. So individual demand. Now for example, your company is making 4 products, product A, B, C, D. You calculate demand for A, demand for B, demand for C, demand for D. Then you calculate the aggregate demand, which is basically sum of individual demands. Demand of A plus B plus C plus D. Transform demand into workers and materials. Then you calculate for this aggregate demand how much workers and what all material I require. Then you identify the company policies that are pertinent, which are existing. You determine the unit cost for regular time, overtime, subcontracting, holding inventory, layoff, etc. That if you are working on regular time, what will be the cost? If you have to provide OT, which is overtime, to the workers, what will be the cost? If you have to subcontract, which means some part of the project you are outsourcing, subcontracting. If you are holding inventory, very important. Many times company keep on producing, and if things are not selling, you will end up holding inventory, right? If you are laying off, that also will have cost. Develop the alternate resource plan. Every plan there should be an alternate plan always ready, and then amongst all these alternatives you select the resource plan which I would say supports or which is in sync with your company's policies. These are the steps in AOP. Now some alternatives for AOP. For managing demand, first alternative is reservation of capacity, that you plan, but cost associated with it is planning and scheduling cost. If you are reserving some additional capacity, always there will be cost. Influence demand. Market oriented cost will be there. There are ways to influence demand. Many companies do that. You do some additional advertisement, for example, if you have a stock of particular product, then what will happen? You are basically influencing demand. For managing supply, there can be 3. One is inventory based alternative. First is you build the inventory, you keep on producing, you keep on adding inventory. But what is pitfall? It will lead to the inventory holding cost. Second, backlog, back order or shortage. In this case, shortage or loss of goodwill cost will be there, right? You are losing out sales. Second, to capacity adjustment. First is overtime and undertime. So for example, if you need more capacity, you ask your workers to do overtime, but in this case you have to do overtime premium, you have to give in form of some extra wages. In case of undertime, you are losing out on productivity. While the worker should ideally work on 8 hours, you are asking him to work for 5 hours. Variable number of shift. Many companies does that. In peak season, instead of, for example, if your company is working 8 hour 2 shift, they will make 8 hour 3 shifts, more workers, but then again cost is there. Sometimes for existing capacity, you need additional hire, which will lead to training and hiring cost. Sometimes to reduce, you need to lay off, that will lead to morale issue, right? Capacity augmentation alternative. First is subcontract or outsource. Some part of the project or an entire project or entire piece you are subcontracting or outsourcing. Transactional cost will be there. Debottleneck. If there is any bottleneck existing in the system, you occur cost on debottlenecking it. Adding new capacity. If you're adding new capacity, definitely annualized cost of the new capacity will be required. All these are the tactics of managing supplies. Friends, this is all from today's video. In next video, we will further continue this chapter and study about production and productivity. If there is any confusion, my dear friends, you can write on the comment section or our mail ID, which is meedu.study@gmail.com, and we will definitely answer it. If you are liking, please like, share and subscribe. Thank you. Take care.